Good afternoon. I'm Tony Costello. I'm the Assistant Education Manager for the Michigan Department of Corrections. I've been involved with McKay since probably when I got into administration back in 2014. I was really involved from like 2015 through 2020. Then the pandemic hit, and then we had some job reassignments, and I have a lot of stuff going on right now, including going into facilities a day or two a week. So I haven't been as involved as an ex officio as I would like to be. A lot of good people on that board. Lot of good things happening with McKay. A lot of good times at the conferences. I will be super happy when we can get back to doing the in-person conferences because that's always been a good time when we get together with a lot of our colleagues and peers and learn a lot of stuff from other people. So um, Tammy and Patrick asked me about giving a corrections update. I know a lot of people are involved in adult ed with corrections, but it's more the county jail side. Michigan's different than a lot of other states. When we talk to people nationally, corrections, as far as the state correctional facilities and the county jails, are kind of one entity. In Michigan, they're a separate entity. So the county jails don't fall under the jurisdiction of the Michigan Department of Corrections. They're kind of their own jurisdiction. So it's always interesting to see how they're their own little kingdoms, and maybe something we're doing they're not doing, and one jail might be doing it this way and another jail is doing it completely different. They're kind of, make their own rules. And I always like getting together with people that actually work in the jails because we can share ideas, and I'm hoping that if anybody has anything they can share, that would be great. Or if there's anything I can offer you as to what we're doing that maybe you could take back to your county jail people and say, hey, in the state corrections at their 29 schools, they're doing this. So, maybe we can look at doing that. So that's kind of the goal of today. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll have some time at the end. This will be a lot of discussion after the kind of overview of what we're doing right now. So let me see if I can share my PowerPoint. All right. Is everybody seeing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go through this pretty quick. There's been a lot of changes in corrections, especially the past 5 years with our model of offender success. Part of that is we're looking at not keeping people incarcerated as long and lowering our number that are incarcerated and reducing our recidivism rate, doing some more things when they're on parole in terms of diversion programs, drug treatment, kind of looking at the causes of what are sending people back instead of just sending them back. When I started in corrections 22 and a half years ago, we were about 45,000 prisoners, and people were going out and coming back about as fast as they hit the door, they were back. We're kind of changing our mindset with that. So we're down to 33,000 prisoners right now, which again is about 10,000 down from the past decade. The Michigan Department of Corrections is the largest provider of adult education services in the state. So we operate 20, on any given day, there's around 7,500 prisoners enrolled in school. That's not the case right now with COVID protocols, but we have a really large school district. So a lot of people don't know that. 95% of incarcerated prisoners will return to their communities. So that kind of is why we changed our mindset, is that we need to look at giving them the skills and the tools when they go home to be successful. And part of that we'll talk about is our offender success model, which is kind of a tracked approach where we try to get them their high school equivalency, then we move them towards a certification in vocational trades, state national certifications. And then some of the prisoners we're putting in our college track. So we're partnering with a number of schools throughout the state to offer college degree tracks through the Pell Grant program that was reinstated as a experiment 4 years ago. So, but again, I'll cover that. So here's our COVID update. We are not making the vaccination mandatory for prisoners. About 65% of them have chosen to be vaccinated, which is good. Because of that, we have started to run our programs again with masks, social distancing, and cohorting. So we were on pause about 2 different times during the past year and a half where we weren't running classes for about 6 months due to all the COVID issues. Once vaccinations started rolling out and we got to a number we were comfortable with is when we started running programming again. In terms of the cohorting, if you're wondering what that means, we used to draw, like, if you've ever been to a prison or a jail, there's different pods or housing units, and we draw from those to come over for our programming. Well, what we've done is we're putting the students that need like academic classes in the same housing unit. So we'll call them over as a cohort so they're not mixing. Because what we were finding out when we started running again is if we had a bunch of different housing units coming over together, if one person was exposed and was a close contact, we were now shutting down like the whole prison. So we've broken everything down into different housing units, holds different things. So one housing unit might be the education unit. Another housing unit might be the program unit where they're putting offenders that need drug treatment, sex offender therapy, those type of things. Another one might be just a general population where it's just workers for the kitchen or something like that. So that's allowed us, even with some COVID exposures, to continue to run programming, which has been a positive thing. Our class size is about 50% of capacity right now. Usually our class sizes were 15 to 20 students in a class. We're down to about 10 in a class right now due to the social distancing. Like I was saying, outbreak status can cause a pause. We've got a couple facilities right now in outbreak status, and that's usually where we get a large number. Like recently we had one facility, during their testing, they found 24 people had active COVID. So they shut that facility down and kind of lock everybody down to make sure they try to limit the spread of it. And then because of not running or not having as big as services as we usually provide, we are now working really closely with our parole agents to place students that leave without their high school equivalency and maybe only need 1 or 2 tests with an adult education center when they get out. And that's where I think some people on this call might want to come in and let me know if you're getting any of that, or if you're not. We need to look at, making sure that we're making those connections, because we don't want people going home without some type of credential or certification, because what we're finding is the more we give them, the less likely they are to recidivate. This is all the stuff we offer. We do academic, AB, GED, career and tech ed, special education, Title I. So we actually have a piece with the Department of Ed. We're not only involved with LEO in the adult ed section, but we also have to be involved with the DOE for our special ed and Title I. We offer employment readiness, which I'll cover in a little bit, but basically it's workshops to get people ready for interviews, resume building, just skills they can use when they're on the job. We're doing employment counseling as part of our vocational trades, where we're looking before we even place them in a trade, what type of interest and aptitude they have to try to get them matched up with something they're going to like and maybe want to do. A recent program we started is our vital documents. So one of the barriers when we go to community meetings with people that were on parole is they were having a hard time getting their vital documents. Like, I need a driver's license, I need a birth certificate, I need a social security card. So we are actually doing all that stuff before they go home. We've partnered with the Secretary of State and the Social Security Administration. We are actually sending them home if they don't have one, with a birth certificate, with the Social Security card, with a driver's license or state ID, which kind of eliminates some of those barriers. And then, like I said, we partner with some colleges for some post-secondary classes that we're offering face-to-face inside. As far as a couple things about what we actually do with our academic programs, our teachers are all certified teachers. They're required by state operating procedures and policy to keep that certification up. We offer professional development. They do some of it with our colleagues out in the public sector. We offer AB, GED, soft skills, and then recently last year we got on board with HiSET. When the state expanded to offer HiSET testing, we became a HiSET center. So every one of our facilities offers computer-based GED and HiSET. We also are required by law to offer special education. So we have certified special education teachers. We follow the federal law, which has always been weird because the regs are a little bit different than they are for the state. So under federal law, we only have to offer services until they're 22 years old, which means even when they get out, they would still be able to have services in the community, even though they no longer do with us because they can up until the age of 26 in the state. We do IEPs, we have school social workers, we have school psychologists, we work with Michigan Rehab to kind of hook people up when they get out with some community services, transition services. As far as our vocational programming, this is what we offer. We do it more center-based now with our vocational villages that I'll talk about shortly, but these are the offerings that we offer throughout the state. These are all state or national certifications, so it's not just a piece of paper that says, you know, MDOC says they can work on a car. It's actual state of Michigan certifications that they can take and get employed with someone. Their carpentry is through the NCCER, which is a nationally accredited group that works with a lot of the post-secondary providers in terms of junior colleges and their programs. So everything on here has some type of certification. And the reason we've chosen most of these, a lot of these are high need, hard to fill positions. So the barrier of hiring a felon is a little bit less if someone can come in, you know, with a national welding certificate. Employers are like, okay, we need welders. You're already trained. Awesome. We're going to hire you. We're finding it's lessened a lot of the barriers. CDL is a big one right now too. There's such a shortage of truck drivers. We're getting a lot of placement with our CDL programs. One that's not on here, we're just getting ready to start at our women's facility a cosmetology program, which is we're really excited about. So we're actually working with the state, and they're going to offer, once they're through with the program, they can actually earn a license in cosmetology that they can use when they get out. So the vocational village is our kind of trade center that we have at 3 different facilities. We have one in Jackson, one in Ionia, and then we just opened up the women's one in Ypsilanti. And it's a positive learning community for career and tech education. So we take this model, we house them together in cohorts. That way they can work together outside, and we try to create this positive peer culture in that housing unit. And then we try to get them to change their mindset through education. It's been very successful. Our students that go through this program and get out, we actually help place them. We work with employers to offer placement for jobs. They are only coming back at about a 15% rate, which is incredible. And, you know, obviously we're looking at the reasons for that, but a lot of that isn't, you know, based on what we're teaching them. It's, again, the substance abuse issues, the mental health issues, those type of things that we try to help them with through education, but not necessarily everything. So 75% of those that graduate from Vocational Village get employed. And we've got employers all over the state that work in these areas. Rick Schneider was kind of helped us get this off the ground, and he was a big proponent of this. So he was a very positive influence, and really it was a bipartisan thing, because when you think about it, you know, helping people not recidivate it kind of fits the needs of conservatives and liberals, because we're doing the right thing, helping people through education, but we're also saving the state money because people aren't coming back to prison. So that fiscally responsible piece has been return on investment, really supported by our conservative colleagues. We also passed some legislation for providing people that go home with something called the Certificate of Employability. And what this is it's a multi-step process. The person has to take the ACT work keys, score a silver or higher, have a CTE completion, stay out of trouble in terms of misconducts would be like a ticket for getting in trouble, or a detention slip if you're talking about school lingo. And people that meet all this criteria, they get their certificate, and it also ensures through law to lessen the liability for people that hire these offenders that have this certificate. So it's kind of offers them some bonding and insurance. Like, hey, this is kind of the best we can send you, and if you give them a chance, here's a little added extra protection for this. That's what it looks like if you ever see one of them. We're also sending people out with a workforce development portfolio. It's a black file, we call it, because that's what it looks like. It's like a little black file we give them when they leave. It's actually in legislation. We have it for everybody, and it's all the positive stuff they've done inside, because that's one of the complaints. Again, when we talk to people that were released, they're like, I can't get a job. Well, why not? Well, I don't have anything to show them that, I have certificates or that I've done well in school. I don't have any positive references or that type of thing. So we give them all that. That's kind of a portfolio that they can take to employers and show them all the good stuff they got. And it's got all their transcripts. So if they want to go to school, that all that information's in there also. We, like I said, we're doing vital documents, birth certificates, social security cards, state IDs. So that's been a positive thing. It cuts down the barriers to people driving. It cuts down the barriers of, a lot of jobs want an ID before they will hire you. So again, another positive change we made in the last couple of years. We're actually bringing employers inside the facilities to do job fairs. We're getting people placed before they leave. And a lot of the employers are blown away when they see some of the things that our students are doing. I've had multiple employers tell me, these people are as well trained as people we're getting out of the community colleges going through some of their tech programs. So that's been a positive. Like I talked about, we do the interest and aptitude through career scope before we place them in a trade pathway. We do resume workshops right before they go home, help them develop a resume, interview skills, job search, job placement. A lot of the stuff that Michigan Works has done, we're doing inside for our prisoners. Post-secondary program, we're kind of the national leader in this, which has been pretty cool. We got involved with Second Chance Pell from the beginning. Michigan was actually the largest recipient of Second Pell Chance grants. So we've been doing that. We offer them at 9 facilities. They're all face-to-face and credit bearing. We had to go to kind of a distance learning model once COVID hit. So Pell is really adamant that it can't just be correspondence. So when I say distance learning, there is a piece where the instructors are still corresponding with the students. So we set up our college instructors with email. So they will email their students every week to go back and forth and ask questions. Then the instructors are videotaping lectures, and we're running it on our institutional TV channel so they can watch the lecture, do their assigned work, interact with the instructor via email, and then they will drop off their work at drop boxes we have throughout the facilities. But a little bit about it. We offer associate's degrees right now, but we're also starting to offer bachelor's through Calvin University and Siena Heights University. Siena is just starting this upcoming January. Calvin's been involved, I think, for 5 years. At the peak, we had over 900 students enroll, and the overall GPA was 3.5, which a lot of the colleges are saying that our students are some of their best students. It is a competitive program, so we do screening to make sure we're placing the right people in there. So in order to get into Pell classes, you have to have your high school diploma or high school equivalency, be 2.5 to 8 years from your earliest release date. And the reason being, we want people to actually earn a certificate or a degree before they go home. So we didn't want people, 6 months from going home to take 1 or 2 classes and then not have anything to show for it. So we're getting them farther away from release so we can actually get them a degree. The selective service piece has been a big problem because a lot of these people have been locked up when it was time to enroll for selective service. They just ended that. So that's going to change. I'll change that on the slide. I didn't catch that, but that was one of the barriers. They're no longer going to make them enroll for selective service because that was a federal requirement in order to, when you're FAFSA, if you didn't register with selective service, then you can't qualify for federal funds. I didn't know that when we first started. We've actually been lobbying to get that removed, and they finally did. And then you can't have student loan default. If you do, you have to start a repayment plan before they'll allow you to receive Pell Grants. And then this is just a little bit about each college. Calvin has a classroom in Ionia. They have around 80 students. They were just approved for Pell, so they're going to start Pell. This semester is when they just started doing some Pell students. But they've had graduates. They were mostly private funded through fundraising with their college. They have a lot of heavy hitters throughout the country and the state. I never realized it until we had some meetings, and there's quite a lot of well-connected, very wealthy people involved with that. And the mission of the college obviously is faith-based, so they've thrown a lot of money at serving these students, which has been a tremendous thing. These are the colleges we're also working with Pell. Jackson is the largest provider. They're actually the largest provider in the country that actually does in-person, face-to-face. There's another college that does a lot of distance learning stuff, but as far as face-to-face, Pell Jackson is the largest. Yeah, they have between 7 and 9 years, business, entrepreneurship, arts, applied science, general studies. And they're now partnering up with Siena. Siena is going to actually offer bachelor's degrees to their students that have went through their program. So it's kind of going to be a transition piece. Mott also does business. They're working out of Lapeer. They have around 80 students. Delta has a smaller group. They have 45 students. Then Calvin and Siena are starting. Calvin this semester, and Siena will be starting next semester. I won't really get into the course, but we want our post-secondary programs to be face-to-face. We think it offers a lot of benefits for positive peer culture that way, but we do also offer correspondence courses through the mail to some colleges throughout the country. All right, that is it. I did the quick and dirty about what we're doing. Like I said, COVID impacted us to where we weren't doing much for a while. It really, last year was dicey. As you can imagine, with those close corridors and all the challenges, it was really rough for a good 6 months. We had a lot of people get sick. We had a lot of people pass away. So we weren't running programming. We got back to it, and then it went away again for a while, but we're back fully running programming. We're not full, but we're finding creative ways to keep people in school because obviously it's not positive when you have people that are locked up and can't do anything all day. It created a lot of issues for, mental health issues. It created some behavior issues. So we're happy to be providing education again, because that's what we do. And it's kind of our mission is to help people get educated so when they get out, they don't come back.
Thanks so much, Tony. Before we get into, I'm here more to facilitate the panel. I'm not an expert. We had just started getting in the jail when COVID happened, but are there any questions specific to any of the slides that Tony shared before we introduce Carrie and have her share her experience?
Yeah, the Pell grants are like FAFSA, like you apply for federal help, scholarships.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It used to be that there was a law that felons could not qualify for Pell, and they changed that through an experiment, so it wasn't fully reinstated. They were trying it in, I want to say it was like 12 or 13 different states, and it went so well, they fully reinstated it. So in 2023, all people with felonies will qualify for financial aid again through Pell or through their colleges or whatever. So it's a good thing.
So you are calling it Second Chance Pell, like it's a special funding for this group of people.
Yes.
Give
Second
them a
Chance
second
Pell.
chance.
Second Chance Pell is the experiment for the prison systems throughout the country right now. Once they go back to, the law is going to change in 2023, where it's going to be back to, they won't care if you had a felony or if you're a prisoner. If you qualify for Pell, you're going to be able to get it. So it won't be second chance anymore.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. So Carrie, can you please introduce yourself and share a little bit about your experience?
Hello, my name is Carrie Mink, and I run a program at the Milan Men's Federal Corrections Institution. It's got about 1,200 incarcerated members right now. We are actually, our umbrella organization is Milan Area Schools, but all our funding is through grants. And so we have the unique opportunity to offer an actual high school diploma to our students. And we're the only one in the entire federal system that offers that. So it's like a little teeny program, but somehow it's really impressive. And they put us on a national website because, look, you can even get a high school diploma in a federal institution. So it's been around for over 40 years. I've been part of the process for about 12 years. And it's a real piecemeal. You're always going to plan B, C, D, E, especially COVID, as all of you probably have had to do. And the piece that is so strange about our program is we are this little isolated office within the education complex at the federal system. So unlike the nicely integrated piece that Tony has, we're just one facet of education within the federal system. They also have auto VT, they also have GED programming, they have Jackson College now also running through those Pell Grants. So we're integrated, but we're also isolated. It's a very strange system for us. And one of the pieces that was really hard on us during COVID is we were considered contractors. Officers were allowed to come in, contractors were not allowed to come in for a long time. And so our workaround last year was I could come in, my teachers couldn't come in. And so I had to be the conduit between getting the work to the students, getting the work from the students, communicating, and trying to make it all work out. And it was a little crazy, to say the least, because just as you were saying, cohorts, certain housing units could only be released at certain times, and our student population was in all the housing units. So we have this, this hour was this housing unit, this hour was this housing unit, and I started realizing, okay, I'm the one person who's being either exposed or exposing everyone else because I'm the only contact person. So that was a little strange. I was very glad when I got my vaccination. It's like, yes, okay, this is good. So now, I don't know if you all are having this too, is we're at a pretty high level for COVID again in terms of the state, and restrictions are coming on. And I don't know whether we'll have to go back to that kind of semi-distance learning. And it's hard to kind of plan for that. We have at least something in place from before, but we would rather not do that in the future. We're doing distance, social distancing, we're doing masks, all of that, but huge difference between actual one-on-one or teacher classroom experience and writing and just having packets. So we hope to continue that. I know from one of the people that works for Jackson College, she's also in state facilities also, and she was talking about how, and you mentioned it too, the teachers could communicate via email to their students. We're not allowed that at all. So it really is this island. Either you're inside the prison and you can communicate with your students, or you're outside and you have no contact at all. So it's very piecemeal and segregated.
So
I don't know
I
if the
was
jail
smarter.
system is also that way.
Yeah, so a lot of the county jails aren't open because we're considered contractors. And that's exactly the same situation we're running into. If I had thought ahead of time, I should have done a poll. But instead, I'm just going to ask for everybody who runs a jail program to just put in the chat if you have access or you still do not have access. So yes, you have access, or no, you do not. I would be curious to see how many have access, because the majority I talk to, if they do have access, the only access they have is they can have like one teacher work with one student through the window, one at a time, which is so inefficient too. So I'd be curious to see the levels of activity that everyone is having with the county jail system as far as getting in. And I see, Rebecca, you put virtual only, but how are you working with them virtually? Because they won't let us, they won't even let oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
I'm trying to fix my screen right now, but if you can't see me, I apologize. I have the chat box in front of me. So they just let me one at a time. It has to be one at a time. So sometimes I'm teaching the same lesson, 8 times. If I have, like right now, I have 7 or 8 students who are actively participating in the HiSET program, and they all use the same computer, monitored on their end, and one at a time because of COVID restrictions.
So it's still one at a time.
Yeah, just one. Yeah, one person at a time. Whereas, obviously before when I went into the jail, actually the administrator told me he wants me to, be able to work them with as a class, but we can't right now because of the COVID. So I'm just happy and thrilled that we're able to, do it the way that we are. I also had a comment too, with the county that I work for, Iosco County. It's located in Tawas, Michigan. The problem that I'm having is when they leave the jail. I was really impressed with the person who spoke. I forgot his name. I'm sorry. Prior about how they automatically set them up with something as soon as they get out, and make sure they have their license or their ID and as such, because so many of mine go back, and most of my clientele are addicts. So when they get out, they actually show up again. So I think that that's the biggest problem we're having with our county, is that they're not getting help fast enough, which makes them fall into a rut, which makes them fall back into their habits. So I was really impressed, and we're trying to make that happen with Michigan Works right now, and get that, going. But obviously with county jail, they don't have a long period of time that they're serving, you know.
Well, yeah, that's the issue we have with trying to do 1v1, even if you're allowed to do that.
Right.
Is that in
yeah.
the county jail, it might be there 30 days. They want them vaccinated before you can work with them.
Yeah, most of mine are a year or less. And I did have people come then afterward when they on the outside and work on the classes that they didn't, or on the parts of the high set that they did not complete. Can you see me now? Huh. I don't know what's going on. Allow.
No, I just know myself.
Oh, there I am. Okay.
Now
So,
we can see you.
yeah. So I did have good luck with that. You know, meeting them at a local facility, after they did get out of jail, you know, so, you know, but I think that the relationship that I had with them physically makes a difference, you know, but virtual is better than nothing.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. I have to mute you because when you're on, it's echoing. I didn't want to offend you when I mute you right now.
No, you're fine. Thank you.
Or it might be somebody else. I'm not sure. Okay. The other question I wanted to ask to facilitate some more conversation is, for those of you that are back in the jails and servicing even one-on-one, do those inmates have to be vaccinated before they can take classes? Just yes or no. Yes or no in the chat. Interesting. Well, our numbers might be higher in Oakland County too. That might be why we have more strict rules apparently. And we've had a lot of turnover with the sheriffs running the jail. It's been interesting. I've had 3 different people in this last 18 months. And I think some of that is obviously due to the pandemic and some of the issues with turnover. But I actually have a meeting with the new sheriff next week. So fingers crossed, we might be able to get in by the new year, but they were under the policy that they wanted only vaccinated inmates to be allowed to come to the classroom. And the issue with that is when there were Johnson & Johnson hiccups, they were no longer allowed to give Johnson & Johnson, which is the only one shot. And by the time when you're in a county jail, you're going to be basically ready to leave by the time you go through the 20 days between 2 shots that are necessary for the other vaccines. So that's been part of the struggle for us here in Oakland County, is that there's some, you know, just some rules that are making it too hard to get in right now. But hopefully next week I'm going to get some new information, seeing that it looks like 75% of the people who responded are actually back in some capacity or another. So that's a good sign that maybe we're ready to turn a corner. But like Rebecca said, or I'm sorry, it might have been Carrie, the numbers are increasing again in our area. And they're not even, one of the buildings of the jail, it wasn't even being used anymore because they were trying to get people exited from the jail as fast as possible to keep the numbers down. So Tony, I do see a question in here for you. It asks, how often do you see inmates come from adult ed at the county level with their credential and be able to enroll in programs offered while incarcerated with the state?
We see some of those. It's always a challenge when they come in because they usually don't have anything. And then, you know, depending on if they have a relationship with their family, if they could send it, we run into that even with transcripts from high school. It's like, hey, do you have your diploma? Yeah. Can you get it from home? No, my mom and dad don't want anything to do with me type thing. Or so if they have a relationship with their family still, we have seen some of those, but it's usually a challenge when they come in. So we end up trying to deal directly with the schools through a release of information type thing. If they say, you know, some of us tell stories too, because they don't want to come to school. They're like, oh yeah, I have my GED. Where from? You know, that school in Detroit that was on the corner of 5th. And, you know, I'm like, I'm gonna need a little more information on that. So.
And Laura's got a question in that's segueing right into the next question I had down here for the panel. So software and tablets, some have tablets, but they're not able to use them for adult education. Some of us have computers in the classroom with Aztec or Casas and Burlington English and Edgenuity on them, and others do not have access to do that. I know for us with Troy schools, they had to put in a specific separate firewall and everything had to have the white, what's it called? The white, a techie needs to help me. You have to have the, like the white list. Thank you, Patty. The white list, it's very strict. So it's tricky to get everything to work correctly within those softwares. Does anyone have availability to those jails tablets that you can add those softwares to? I don't think they have enough resources within the tablets, memory, drive, whatever. Has anyone been able to do that? Who has software, who doesn't? Who's still just paper pencil?
I know our county jail, though we're not the ones that are facilitating the learning, they're doing everything on their own in terms of they hire their own teacher in the county jail and everything and fund it on their own. Their paper pencil, besides the GED Pearson stuff, which is obviously cleared, they do have a Zoom set up on one tablet to do, they're now back in person, but to do when they were doing interviews with our special ed teacher to provide services, they were doing Zooms, but there was no other software allowed. And that was a question I had of who has been able to get certain softwares, especially when you're looking at like high school completion, like an Odyssey-ware, an Ingenuity, some of those type things. Is there any of that stuff being cleared if it's something that's self-contained that you don't have to go, off to other sites? So yeah, that's kind of how our program runs. And then my question to add on top of that.
Yeah, so we have Aztec, Ingenuity, Burlington English, and CASAS testing all available on the computers with that special firewall network in the county jail in Oakland County. So they were all able to whitelist enough. And then if I recall, Patty's on here, we had to try to work through some of the links in, I think, Aztec to some of the videos, or YouTube we had issues with because they were going, like you said, outside of the actual software. And so that created some kinks in getting all of these software add-ons to work. I'd be curious, I don't want to put Sue Mazzillo on the spot, but I saw her here and she does read the WIOA grants and the institutional grants. Sue, I would be curious to know if you could estimate what percentage of people who got institutional grants last year were able to actually utilize them much at all last year, or did they all just have to get pushed forward?
Hey, Tammy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, we had the grant, we typically have between 20, 28, 30 providers that were funded, maybe last year, the years before that less. We probably had at least 10 or more that were not able to operate based on the guidance you're providing today. It mostly has to do with what the facility has determined. And if they don't allow people to enter in, then there's always the problem with how do you provide that virtually. Some locations will allow you to do, they have firewalls, right? You can provide that, but of course, how did we know we needed to have that ready, or you folks need to have that ready if you weren't using it in the classroom? So we saw programs trying to jump through hoops and get that. There were promises from their local jails that maybe they could get in January. Who knew we'd have the numbers that we did last January, right? So we had programs holding up, but it was about a third or maybe a little bit more. And as Tony mentioned, the MDOC numbers were down quite a bit because of the restrictions. So it'll be interesting for us to see this year how it goes. And it sounds like what you're saying is that you have the same feedback from your local jail that you did before, right? You may be able to get
I'm hoping
in
something will change next week. Yeah, hopefully next week, maybe we'll get a timeline. I mean, it was, every few months they'd be like, okay, let's check back in June. And then it was October. And now it's like, maybe the new year.
And I don't know how they're making decisions. Is it based on numbers in the state, CDC guidelines? Out of the other maybe 20 or 18 programs we had that did operate, numbers were scarce. Our numbers were down, but it was understandable because of the situation.
Well, if they're only letting you
see a normal everyday program, right. So I bet a third, and the majority of the other ones had much lower numbers than they've had in the past.
Yeah, when you have to go in one via one, it's not, I mean, how efficient is that to try to service, especially when in the county jails are not there that long?
And it's great for the one student that you can provide it to, but what about the other 10 or 20 that might be eligible? But I know that there's limitations, right? So how is that decision made then?
And if you're going to try to see all 10,
opportunity, but how if the location doesn't provide that access to you, or your school can't feed into theirs. And again, we've talked about that before, restrictions within a place like that, web-based is very strict. And so everybody understands, but it sure is difficult for you programs.
Yeah. Well, and if you want
And
to
we're
try
sorry
to
about
spell
that.
10, you can only spend an hour with each student and they're never going to get
Correct.
enough hours to actually make a difference. The only thing you can hope for, and that what we're going to try to do in Troy once we get back in, a lot of our focus is going to be on trying to make that connection with them so they will continue and join our adult education program when they get on the other side. We understand they don't have time to get it completed in that 30 days,
Right.
2 months, however long they're there. But if we can at least get them to continue when they get done, because that we don't see. It just doesn't happen. You know, they first get out, they have so many other priorities that, you know, we're on the bottom of the education becomes at the bottom. And I get that for the first week or two, but, you know, we got to find a process, you know, instead of follow-up, let's try to re-engage them, remind them, hey, you were making gains here. Let's try to keep it going. And especially right now, if we have to go back and we have very limited numbers, that's the only way I can see it being successful is to try to keep them engaged. And I see Carrie wants to add to that.
Oh, well, what I was wondering is something that we're really restricted on is we are not allowed to have communication with our students when they go out on the outside. We're completely forbidden from that. We could lose our jobs if we have any. Yeah. And so I would love, I mean, we've got this dual program. We've got a night school. I would love, we've got enough students from Detroit, they could commute to Milan to finish off their degree. But we are not allowed to promote that. We are not allowed to suggest it. If they independently do it and go to our night school, we have teachers that both teach at night school and at the prison. So then they're going to have to fill out all this paperwork. And it's very frustrating because I think you're absolutely right. I mean, continued education is what they absolutely need. It shouldn't just be while they're incarcerated. But
I think it's
we're
different
at a loss for how to.
I think it might be different for the county jails because they provide a whole bunch of resources so that they will get engaged when they go out the other side. And my teachers started giving, because they might not might not be by Troy Adult Ed when they leave the jail in Pine Lake. So we give them resources to all the different adult educations in the area to reach out to, because we can transfer all of their testing and everything, or they can become dual enrolled or whatever works best for them. So I think for the county jails, it might be different than what it is in your federal situation. I think because we have all their information on the ALP with their phone number, but the problem is their phone numbers change, their email address, they don't even remember maybe their email address. So finding them when they leave is part of the difficulty too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Carrie, because that's been the mindset in corrections for decades, that, you know, you can't have any contact with these people once they get out. We're slowly starting to change that at the state level. I was absolutely shocked, but for our Second Chance Pell, we actually went to Washington, D.C. in 2019 and met with Senator Peters. And I traveled there with a formerly incarcerated student that went through our program and was studying at the University of Michigan. And we both met with Senator Peters and kind of, since I work for the state, I can't say lobbying, but discussed that, you know, we needed to expand the Pell program to include more people. And here's a great example of why we need to do that, because this young man is doing something positive with his life because of that program. So we're kind of breaking down those barriers. I know I've talked to some people that have gotten out and they'll email or call back and need some help with some resources. And we try to tell them to work with their local parole agent or their community resources that we give them, but we are allowed to direct them and help them now. And I think what you're saying about having them even come back would be a fantastic idea, because not only would it be good for them, but it would show the guys that are inside, hey, here's some people that even though they're out, they're still trying to better themselves. They're a role model for you. They're trying to get their education, and that's more powerful than anything we can say or do.
If anyone has any other discussion areas they wanted to make sure we addressed or any specific questions, we have about 8 minutes left. And I just want to make sure this is supposed to be like an open panel Q&A. So go ahead and unmute yourself if we didn't hit on an area you wanted, or if you have more specifics about an area we did touch on, or anything brand new, or if the state has any announcements or updates or anything they want to share about the institutional issues and the dilemma with getting in, if they've heard anything at the state level of any changes coming down. I feel like it's kind of a local policy based on your kind of county and region, as far as whether you can get in, when you can get in, how you can get in. And like I said, for us, we're dealing with a lot of turnover within the jails. So even when we do get back in, I can foresee a lot of issues with them having enough staff to help pull different groups into the classrooms. And they shut down a building. So are we even gonna have that many students that are gonna be eligible because they're making them be vaccinated to even join the classes? Is that gonna be deemed even legal? We had an issue in Oakland County where one of the prisoners was trying to sue either the county, the state, the jail, because they were given the Johnson & Johnson, and now they're saying that the county or state or whoever was trying to kill them. So there's a lot of politics mixed in within our area, and I'm sure there's probably politics mixed in everyone's area when it comes to any kind of funding sources from the public, right? But anyone have anything else? I'm just gonna keep it quiet for a couple of minutes and see if anyone unmutes or put it in the chat. If not, we can give you 6 minutes of your day back and you get a little longer break before the 3 o'clock. Thank you so much, Tony and Carrie. Really appreciate your insight. Unfortunately, this wasn't a panel meant to provide answers and solutions because we don't have a lot of control over what's going on with the pandemic, let alone how the counties are gonna react to it. But I think it always just helps to hear what's going on and know you're not alone, and see that everyone's kind of in a mixed bag here, and we'll all get through it. And basically we just have to wait to get to the other side and just try to be as creative as we can and as patient as we can until things clean up. But I think forever it might be changed. I'm hoping, like Tony said, that they are going to try to change how long we keep people in jail that are expected to get out and join back into society, so that they have time to become successful when they return. So I do like seeing that they're making education and credentialing much more important while they're there. Laura, I see your hand up. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, you know what? I saw somebody posted something about laptops in there, and that's what I was going to ask is, are schools providing laptops individually to inmates where they're passing them out, collecting them? I'm very curious, because I'm told if we can get something going, we can do it, but we're like, we
were told it had to be desktops because laptops can become a weapon, and they definitely can't be taken into the cell areas. They have to be in the classrooms. But they have tablets now that, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, the tablets can go into their cell areas, which those would be like heavy like a weapon too. So does anyone have anything?
Yeah, I was going to say, we work with a company in corrections called Edovo, EDOVO, and they started specializing with jails in Illinois. I believe they're like 8.5, 9-inch tablets. And we've had them in some of our areas that are hard to serve. So we put them in some of our higher security levels where they can't get out to come to school. We've put them in with our protection units, if we have high profile people that, like former police officers or stuff that can't come over. We put them with our underserved populations, our women's facility, our youth, and it's been super successful. And there's a cart that goes in the housing unit. The officer in there usually has a prisoner that he assigns that will go door to door and pass these out. And they're dummy tablets that hook up to a network. So once you put your password in, you can, it'll pick up your account, but you can use any tablet. It's not like a specific tablet has to be assigned to you. And the prisoners love them. I've had guys when I've went that are level 5 locked up 23 hours a day that usually want to, assault staff every time, that when I go around, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. This has made my life so much better, because I have something to do. And it's a pretty cool concept because it's called learn and earn. So for like every minute of educational content you do on there, they earn a minute towards music or videos or video games. So there's an incentive for them to do something positive. So they can do GD programming, they can do CTE programming, they can do self-help. There's a bunch of self-help stuff on there. There's religious stuff. They're really cool, and they're pricey. So it's an investment for the facility, but the places that we put them in, the incidence of misconduct dropped about 25% because instead of getting in trouble, they're on the tablets, and they know if they do get in trouble, they can't use the tablets, so they behave better. So if anyone's interested, get on the internet, or if you want to contact me directly, I can hook you up with the person that does the sales for them, but we've been super happy with what they've done for us.
So Tony, if I recall correctly from when you presented before, you have like designated living quarters for them to be able to use those tablets. Is that how you were? Is that still how you have to do it, where they can't get out of the living quarters? Okay.
No, there are certain housing units, like I said, the special populations we identified. So you can only get the tablet if you're in that unit, and they're set up with something called geofencing. So if a guy decides, oh, when I get to go outside the yard, I'm going to take it out there and try to steal it or something, they become like bricks. So as soon as they walk outside out of range, it cuts everything off, and then it's just a big paperweight.
So Sue, I'm going to put you on the spot one more time and just ask. So something like those Adobo tablets that he said are fairly pricey, would we be able to use institutional or Section 107 funding? Would we only be able to purchase a portion of it since it's used for more than just the education piece? Like figure out what percentage of the software that's on there is for education time versus music and playtime that's the incentive piece? Or is that something the jail should be able to cover because they're using it for so many different parts of their communications within the jail? What do you think? Have you
Right, it may be there's a portion that would be covered. It would depend on the activities, depending on how the different jails or locations would use it. Tony was suggesting different ways that they use it. But of course, there's a property inventory that your agency or district would hold. So that school district or agency would be the owner of those. And so Tony was talking about whether they, they track it by, they take a cart around wherever they're housed at, no different than computers or laptops. But absolutely. And I could say to 107, Sam and Sandy aren't on, I'm not quite sure, but I would say yes, that portion as well, because the intent is to educate these participants, right? So there is funding that's available, and absolutely, I don't see any reason that it wouldn't be an allowable cost.
Awesome. There you go, guys. We found one solution to help you look into Adobos.
Tony, I have a question.
Jail will allow them in. You have to make sure your jail will allow tablets in before you
correct
go further.
Tony, do the correctional officers distribute them, or do the teachers take them up to floors and say who gets them, or how does that all work?
No, the officers do it. Like I said, they usually have a prisoner like tutor that we hire that does it, and the officers are responsible for the inventory. And some places they do pass it out, and it's funny because when I first went to the facilities for the training, because we train the officers too, they're all like, but then when I talked to them, I went back after 6 months and I walked around, and a couple of the guys that were growling at me, I said, all right, tell me what a big waste of money this was, and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, actually, we like them. It's so much more quiet around here because they're playing on the tablets instead of harassing us. So the officers became advocates for it. So I'm like, okay, I think we're onto something here. We got something that everybody can like, and they're a great company too, because they'll customize your stuff. So if you want to develop some content and put it on there, they'll do that. They have a bunch of content that they have. Your role as a teacher is you have a portal you log in through, and you can assign what they actually do. So you can say if you want the student to have access to only GED math, just so you make them do that, you can do that. We chose not to go that route. We monitor what they do and tell them, if they want to test, we'll be like, well, you only worked on GED math for an hour this week, and we told you 5, so no, you're not going to be able to test. So we monitor it that way, but we don't block things, but you can do that. You can block specific things if you just want them to use specific things. But my thing is if they're using them and they're doing some even self-help stuff, it's a positive.
And so potentially Aztec could run on that?
They don't usually run canned software like that. We kind of went down that road with them. It's more stuff they develop and put on there. I think that's how they keep the cost down. I'm not saying in the future they couldn't, because we did have that discussion, because Aztec is what we use on our internal network. We have a network where we have 4 to 7 thin clients in every classroom, and Aztec's our main educational program we use. But when we rolled this out a couple of years ago, that wasn't an option. But they do have something on there that they developed that does GED prep.
Tony, what's the name of the program where they, if they earn a minute of education, they earn a minute of fun music?
That's the Edovo tablets, EDOVO, Edovo. I'll write it in the chat. I think I did, but I'll write it in there again.
And Cami, I think, we're kind of starting to run towards almost 250, getting close to that other presentation.
Yeah, instead of giving you back time, we took more time.
So,
We're good. We're good.
I
We
just-
can end now. Thank
a
you,
lot of people
guys.
remember, like, you have Tony's information, and that was, some of that information's really good, and I know we want to connect with him about it. Reminder that this will be posted back up, so if we need it, and really just, thank everybody, Tony, everyone who shared, Carrie, Tammy, and then, you have about a 10-minute break before your last session of the day, and then we hope to see you at the social event tonight. So
Pictures of your pets.
that's
Post
right.
them. All right, I'm
All
gonna
right.
stop the recording now. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.